CPMs over the last 18 months have gone from like $20 on average to as high as like 800 we've seen with some of our customers, which is insane.
Keith Putnam-Delaney, co-founder and CEO of Primer.
I really want a dev tool basically built on an agentic platform to make producing integrations way faster. Nobody creates an account on Reddit or Meta with a work email, you get like a 2%, 10% match rate. We get incredibly high, like 80% on Meta, 50% on Google, like 70% on Reddit match rates for our customers. And then that kind of unlocks a lot of interesting possibilities.
There's a lot of talk about ads in LLMs. What is your perspective on all this buzz?
Perplexity's had their ad program in beta, obviously. OpenAI just launched theirs. From my perspective, I'm excited for it.
What other kind of tactical tips would you give somebody if they were thinking about running, or they are running paid advertising? Keith, welcome to GTM Now.
Hey, Sophie, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. We're going to cover everything paid, and there's a lot to cover, but let's start off with the high level structural changes, because we always say, with AI, there's a lot changing in terms of, from the investment lens, where value accrues. With product being easier to build, that value shifts over to distribution. We're seeing the same kind of structural changes happen to specific areas. What's happening with paid?
I think the really interesting thing about paid is in the wake of all these incredible changes in AI is that there's actually a limited number of channels to capture people's attention, right? AI has not produced a new social network. It hasn't produced something that people are sort of scrolling through for content. What AI has instead done is it's sort of glutted the existing channels with more content. So you have essentially a supply and demand problem. You have oodles and oodles of demand and limited supply. And that's causing a crazy increase in costs on a lot of digital advertising channels. And yeah, I think it's one of the unsung stories of the AI sort of revolution we're going through.
And with these rising costs, how should people be thinking about their acquisition motions?
Yeah, well, what's really interesting, if you, again, think about AI and go to market more broadly, it's also created a glut on outbound. And everybody's talking about the decrease in effectiveness on outbound these days. So it's sort of like, all right, what do you turn to? I think a lot of people are looking at community and kind of field marketing and events again, which is cool. And then on paid, I think a lot of people are left kind of scratching their heads a bit, which is too bad because there definitely are opportunities. Reddit is seeing a surge in B2B demand lately. We are seeing more and more brands interested in trying to get Meta to work for them. Some very brave B2B brands are exploring TikTok. So there's definitely opportunity there. It's just that LinkedIn and search have diminishing returns at the moment. It seems like for most of the data that we look at. Yeah.
Yeah. You nailed on the head where a lot of people are scratching their heads, and you named a few channels there. Can we actually go through each of the channels and kind of break down what has changed now with AI and what people should be thinking about with each channel? Like what's effective, what's not?
Yeah.
Where should people be spending their dollars?
Totally. So with AI, let's talk search, because it's always kind of like the bread and butter default channel that marketers go to because it's high intent, right? Somebody's searching for something, they want that thing. The AI overview is sort of killing search slowly but surely, especially unbranded search. AI answers are popping up the majority of time in something like Google and more in Bing too. So what are people doing? What's still working? They're investing the money in competitor keywords, right? So they're bidding on anybody and everybody that's a brand name that might be related to them. That's working. It's still actually proven to be quite effective. It may continue to work for a while, but it also will suffer from diminishing returns as everybody else starts doing it.
I have to say, I can't tell you, every time I search for a brand,
Yeah.
I'm scrolling down 6
Totally.
different ads before I actually get to the organic page of
Totally.
that brand.
And it's really interesting. Google's like, no, we're not going to do, like, when people are searching for brands, we're not going to do AI answers because they need to still make money,
Yeah.
right? To fund all those CPU costs. So that's search kind of in a nutshell. On LinkedIn, wow. I mean, LinkedIn is just like CPMs over the last 18 months have gone from like $20 on average to as high as like 800 we've seen with some of our customers, which is
Wow.
insane. So a lot of people are looking for efficiencies there. There's still really cool kind of ad formats that LinkedIn's playing with. Thought leadership probably being the one that's getting the most attention right now. Their CTV placements are actually still pretty effective. And the neat thing about CTV is you can't skip it, which is kind of fun. So those are the kind of the two default channels I would say for B2B marketers. I think one of the things that a lot of folks don't realize is that there is the opportunity and possibility of unlocking more traditionally B2C channels. I think Clay just rolled out their ads product. I think it's a really interesting sort of signal that they see opportunity in helping users kind of stitch together, helping their customers stitch together identity between kind of like the LinkedIn level and that, B2C Instagram, me at night sort of doom scrolling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All humans at the end of the day.
Totally.
And human behavior may look different B2B to B2C, but truly it's just humans.
Yeah.
Now, I'm asking you all these questions about channels specific to paid because you are yourself an expert in the area. For anyone unfamiliar with Primer, can you give a little bit of context to what you're building?
Sure. So my background wasn't always in paid. I used to be more of a kind of a brand marketer, and then I got really intrigued by data and targeting because at the end of the day, marketing doesn't really work if you can't get it in front of the right audience. And what we've built essentially at Primer is a targeting layer. So one of the main problems with kind of trying to target people on Meta or Google or TikTok or Reddit is they don't have those B2B sort of filters built in natively, right? So most folks try to upload a list of work emails, right?
Right.
And because nobody creates an account on Reddit or Meta with a work email, you get like a 2%, 10% match rate. We can change that. And we do. We get incredibly high, like 80% on Meta, 50% on Google, like 70% on Reddit match rates for our customers. And then that kind of unlocks a lot of interesting possibilities, a lot of not only cheaper inventory, but still really effective channels. And then we're doing some cool things on the measurement front. But yeah, I think what we're really excited about is nobody really owns the B2B paid acquisition space right now. And we see an opportunity to build something powerful there.
Well, and definitely not across D2C channels, like you mentioned, and being able to actually bring the identity of the B2B person over to those channels. That's a huge gap right now.
Totally. But people are, like I said, Clay's moving into the space. We're in the space.
Yeah.
I think people see that the economics of these sort of two default channels aren't really working and they're looking for new opportunities. And where the money goes is where the startups will go.
And what does that actually do for any kind of measurement? Because I think that's a huge constraint for a lot of people that are, behind the concept of, okay, we're humans, we spend time on all these different platforms, we're all scrolling different various things at night.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to measure.
I know.
It's so hard to measure. And especially because, we might scroll something on Instagram tonight, but a lot of the time a demo, for example, might be booked on desktop in the daytime. Right. So that you've kind of got the channel fragmentation and expansion, whichever is more suitable there. And then you've also got, it sounds like, the device fragmentation too.
Yeah. And the device fragmentation is sort of not something I think marketers give enough credit to. Even on LinkedIn, the majority of your engagement on LinkedIn is on mobile these days, not on desktop. So LinkedIn is the easiest to attribute because it's still people go on desktop, they're at work, they scroll through LinkedIn, they click on the ad, they go all the way through and they sign up. which is great, ideal. I wish everybody did that. But they don't.
Yeah.
So the challenge, and there is no easy answer. If somebody had nailed attribution, I mean, attribution is where so many startups have gone to die. So attribution is tricky, but I do think like it's just a process of triangulation. Ultimately, my friend Pranav over at Paramark is doing some cool things on the incrementality and media mix modeling side of things. I think that's where a lot of the future lays for the sophisticated paid teams and for earlier stage marketers. You really have to kind of not just look at first touch, last touch. You really have to sort of embrace causality. Like you have to do holdout groups. You have to, even something simple like, hey, we turned up the dial on Meta. We saw a ton of leads come in May. We turned it off in June. We saw, a significant drop. There's a strong correlation there. All right, Meta works for us. Let's keep investing. It doesn't tell you how much to invest, but at least it gives you signal.
Yeah, directional data.
Mhm.
Is holdout groups the best way for people to do that?
100%. Yeah, holdout groups are the statistically proven way to do it, right? You basically have a control population, doesn't see this ad campaign, and exposed population that does. You compare the conversion rates, all other marketing touch points being equal between the two groups, and you see if there's a statistical lift. And like, honestly, it's sort of going back to the good old days of like Mad Men advertising.
Yeah.
That's what they do, you know?
Yeah.
Zoom is super famous for they never did any digital advertising, right? Only out of home and kind of sponsorships. And they would just compare markets.
Yeah.
Right? And they would look in Google Analytics and just compare Nashville versus Louisville,
100%.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies are doing that now
Yeah.
and for out of home, just as
Yeah.
it's grown.
Right.
Because that is the best way. And it's
Yeah.
funny, we've just overcomplicated things with attribution when in reality it's more the directional side, like you said.
Totally. Yeah. And it's hard to build a model. Everybody wants a model that's perfect.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't exist.
Yes,
Sucks.
100%. Well, you mentioned something that's super important, statistical significance, even if you're doing holdout groups. What kind of size of company does this make sense to actually scale towards to have that kind of end that you are hitting statistical significance?
Yeah.
Who is this for if I'm kind of listening to this?
Yeah, totally. I mean, for the marketer who's trying to, run a campaign to 500 companies or people, it's not going to be for you. But you can do it with relatively small sample sizes these days. Like even a 5,000 person audience, given it enough time, you can get to stat sig. Yeah,
That's pretty doable for a
Yep.
lot of companies.
Totally.
And what about channel? Let's say you said the starting place is 5,000 people. What about a channel starting place? If you're, advising any kind of companies and marketers building, is there a channel that they should be starting with, or is that perhaps nuanced to each company?
I still think the easiest place to test is LinkedIn.
Right.
Yeah, just because they've got the filters built into their product, right? You can define your ideal customers right there and try to go after them. So it's definitely the easiest place to test. One of the things that I'm really hoping that we'll get into as a company in the next year or so is the barrier to entry to testing advertising is just very high, right? Because the cost of experimentation is really high.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I think about a lot is if I was a kind of solo founder or seed stage startup, how could I be comfortable making this investment and expecting that it won't just be lighting $20,000 on fire, which to me might be a lot of money at that stage.
For sure.
It's something that I think we're going to have some cool features around at some point.
Ooh, very cool. We'll have to revisit this when it comes out. Super exciting. But you're right. It is a hard barrier, kind of higher barrier to entry. And
Totally.
maybe just as we talked about at the beginning, certain areas become a little bit more commoditized, if you will. That is one area that kind of retains that barrier to entry is paid.
Yeah.
So when we think about at the macro level, where are those areas and gaps and opportunities? And you called out a few different channels, including community, including paid. Like, where does paid sit in terms of kind of where people are going? Are you seeing an uptick? Are you seeing people pull spend out?
No,
What's happening?
I think we're seeing people double down
Yeah.
on paid, in part because outbound I mean, paid is the top channel for most companies. It takes a lot and I should say for most um, marketing teams and kind of go to market teams. Products. Obviously, I mean, there's product growth loops that are really powerful, but I think paid is basically outside of product growth loops the biggest area of investment. And as outbound really decreases in effectiveness, people are pouring more money into paid because they can still make the ROI pencil, even though it is getting more expensive. And what I think as a result, though, of that increase in cost is they're turning to the channels where it's cheaper to advertise and where they can still get that ROI.
Which are the Reddits, like you said.
The Reddits, the Meta, the Instagrams, the places where people where they're attending, and it's sort of kind of an obvious thing, but it's like that's where people are spending their time. You should be where they are to begin with. Even if LinkedIn wasn't so expensive, you should probably still be on Instagram because that's where your audience hangs out. Yeah.
Definitely. No, it makes sense. Are you seeing a certain kind of split between channels that people diversify across, or is that quite variable from company? Just as, marketers are thinking about their channel diversification.
Yeah, I think it's somewhat persona dependent.
Yeah.
So Reddit, right, isn't for everyone. We've seen match rates on Reddit as high as 70%, 80% for IT and engineers, and then 4% for legal and procurement, right? Because it's a smaller community, and not everybody's on there. I think the same, but it's actually really interesting to think about the channels where people aren't on LinkedIn,
Yeah, 100%.
Like doctors, not on LinkedIn. People in education, not on LinkedIn. So those are some of the things that I think are actually kind of quite interesting, is it really varies by persona. But the majority, for better or for worse, and I think it's for worse, the place where we see people continuing to dial up investment is on search. And I just think it's kind of foolish. I really do. I don't think they're like, oh, well, we're paying $8,000 for it, for an opportunity, and it's like, we can still afford that. But it's like, but is that the right question to be asking yourself? Is there not something a much better, cheaper, higher volume way to get that? Yeah.
Yeah. Why are people spending more and doubling down then if it's only getting more expensive?
That's a great question. Fear, I think. I'm trying something new. The cost of falling on your face,
Yeah.
Again, that lighting money on fire. It's hard to know. Paid typically takes a fair amount of experimentation to get right. I'll just say where I sort of teased it earlier, but I just say what I think is hugely missing in paid is benchmark data, right? Is understand it boggles my mind that there isn't a company out there that doesn't aggregate and anonymize segment by persona and then say, okay, here's what's working if you're going after cybersecurity companies. Here's what's working if you're going after HR, and sort of helping provide that data to help steer. Now, does it lead to a reversion to the mean? Yes, but will the best marketers always kind of still take a first principles approach? But I think it de-risks a lot of the investment if you can learn from your peers in a way that's not compromising, I guess is the right word. Yeah.
It would be hugely beneficial, and there's benchmarks for so many things. So what's the barrier to creating paid benchmarks? Immediately what pops in my head is the fragmentation we've been talking about, and people not actually having the data around what is effective because of the B2B environment.
Well, if we keep growing, we'll have the data.
Yeah.
We're starting to produce the data. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, we're working on kind of our first set of those. We're just kicking off some fun data science around that. We've finally kind of hit the scale around certain personas where we can produce that. And we want to build that into the product. And that is what I think helps that maybe the marketer who's spending $1 million a month on Google actually decide to put some of that money into Meta. Maybe that founder who's trying out marketing for the first time to press the on button, I
Hmm.
guess. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, we're excited to see that
Yeah.
come. And then for companies that you're working with
Mhm.
as you're growing and scaling, we talked about generally what size of company or stage of company makes sense to do paid advertising. What stage of company does it make sense for them to look at Primer?
Typically, we currently, right? I
Yeah.
think it's going to change. But currently we serve companies with, that are already investing about $10,000 a month on average in ad spend. That's sort of the litmus test we found for like, all right, we've got a motion, it's working. How do we, and it's enough where we can make it more efficient, basically. I think at that point, what we've found is anybody spending under that is going to turn it off, turn it back on, turn it off, turn it back on. And as a software business, we don't like that. So,
Certainly not ideal.
yeah. So that's kind of that's a short answer to your question.
Yeah.
Or maybe a long answer. I don't
People
know.
that have always on paid systems at
Yeah.
that scale.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah. Typically around 150 to 100 employees as well is kind of what we find.
Yeah, that's a really helpful benchmark.
Yeah.
And Keith, a lot of people think about paid as just direct pipeline generation, but there's so many other outcomes that come from anything that gives you data from the customer.
Yeah.
How do you think about the actual utility of paid? Like, how should people be thinking about their programs and what quantitative and qualitative information that they're gathering?
Yeah. I think one of the coolest things about paid is that if you think about it, right, it's the thing that's furthest up your funnel, right? Impressions are the thing that's furthest up your funnel. So if you feel confident you're reaching your ideal customers, you can get a lot of eyeballs on a lot of messages in a really short time frame. So it's incredibly powerful, not just obviously like message testing, not just to drive those, form submits and leads, but message testing that can help inform your strategy more generally, like what your website should say. You can really iterate with messaging at a much faster pace than you can anywhere else, and that is one of the huge benefits that obviously AI unlocks as well.
Yeah, it sounds like the actual learning loop itself from it.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And what other kind of tactical tips would you give somebody if they were thinking about running or they are running paid advertising and they're trying to kind of get more juice from the squeeze? Like, what are the tried and true tips that you have?
Ooh, tips. That's a great question. Like, I'm trying to think, God, I could go in so many different directions.
We can go in all of them. So yeah.
Well, okay. I'll talk about some things that I believe to be true. More like philosophically. You should. The hardest thing for a competitor to copy is your targeting. They can copy everything else. They can figure out what channels you're on. They can figure out your creative. They can figure out your messaging. All of that is easy for them to look up and imitate. They can't figure out your targeting. So that can be a unique competitive advantage. Brandon Cami, the former head of growth at Rippling, he and I used to talk about that all the time. The second thing is go where your competitors aren't, I think.
Channel-wise?
Channel-wise. I always think that's really helpful is, or go where the market generally is. It's sort of take like that first principles approach. I think it's like fun when, out of home, I feel like is having a resurgence.
Yeah.
Because like, it was like, I mean, these channels or these tactics are cyclical, right? Everybody rushes in to do field marketing. That's going to decrease in effectiveness. So what's the thing they're not doing right now? The other tip I have is, or kind of more philosophically, I guess it'll be my third point, is I think these days, buying credibility has to be a huge piece of your marketing strategy. what I mean by that is you look at what's happened in B2C marketing. Influencer is it, and it's already happening in B2B, but I really do think that we're only at the beginning of what that really looks like. And one of the fastest ways you can grow is buying that credibility from people who already have the audience, as opposed to trying to create it yourself. And I think also because of some trends in B2C, people don't seem to really want to hear from brands very much these days. They want to hear from trusted people, yeah, that they feel a connection to. Yeah.
What influence does that last point? And those are all fantastic points.
Yeah.
What influence does that last point have on companies' approaches to more programmatized platform paid spend? Like you're talking about Meta, we're talking about LinkedIn.
Yeah,
but
totally.
when we talk about the creator space, which you're right, I think is like the early days of
Early
B2B.
days. Yeah.
What does that actually do to somebody sitting in the seat being like, where do I allocate my money?
Okay. So there's vehicles for accelerating that with paid. Like those tools exist. For example, on Meta, this has happened for a long time, where if you get an influencer can share their basically give you access to their brand, and then you can promote their content. You can basically boost their content,
which you can do on
with paid
LinkedIn
dollars,
too.
and you can do that on LinkedIn. And then LinkedIn came out with that 6 to 12 months ago.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't see many brands doing that yet. And that promoted thought leadership, that's not from someone within your own company. That's from someone outside your company. I think that is probably, that's a hugely undervalued tactic. Yeah.
I like it. I like it. That's interesting about Meta too, because I know a lot of marketers are working that on the LinkedIn side or wanting to do more of that on the LinkedIn side, but haven't, doubled down enough on LinkedIn itself if that's where they want to start.
Right.
But certainly haven't crossed the chasm to Meta.
No, and I don't think many B2B marketers are doing it on Meta at all. I do think that's just a big opportunity though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing you mentioned, Keith, was the actual targeting is something that your competitors can't copy. So if we talk about defensibility overall and paid, what happens to the creative side?
Man, well, I think a lot of creative, LinkedIn is just so bad, but at this, like they don't have nearly any of the tools that Meta's probably the best, Google's second best. LinkedIn and Reddit are the worst. On Reddit though, I'll actually give like a quick aside. The key for Reddit is just making your ad content appear native, which is actually easy to do if you're thoughtful about it. I think where ad content on Reddit fails is when it's like you're in the middle of a subreddit and it's just like ad, people just glaze over it. But if it looks like it's actually a thoughtful post, people will engage with it. Shout out to Jason Laritson at Confluent for kind of that playbook. In general, though, I think what's happening with creative is unlike on Meta and Google, is the dynamic optimization is huge. So you just basically have to feed the algorithm enough variance and enough mix of different formats and messages, and it will end up picking the winner. And it's getting better and better at that. Yeah. LinkedIn's got a long way to go though.
So would that be almost that kind of moat in a way, is your variant?
Yeah, I mean, your
variance.
Your ability to iterate variant and produce variants, particularly video, is really, really important. That is a moat, or it's something that it's a muscle, I would say, that is important to develop. And there's lots of cool tools out there to help with this, like Opus Pro, something I use a lot, Riverside, and yeah, there's tons, CapCut, all of it. And that's only going to get better and better and better with AI.
Yeah.
And easier and easier and easier. The key is that can be a very big competitive advantage. And then, and then targeting. Yeah.
How do you feel about AI videos? You work with so many different companies that are iterating on all their different video variations.
Yeah.
What's happening there? Have any like really dove into pure AI variations?
I haven't seen much of it yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I really haven't.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it has to happen at
Yeah.
some point. I see a lot more like kind of AI edited, like, AI B-roll mixed in. Yeah, but I haven't really seen a ton of like purely AI output
Hmm.
content. Yeah.
And I'm curious what that does for paid, both on the video and the image side.
Hmm.
Just as we see a flood and maybe a flood of different variants that algorithms can run and test, if that will take away, maybe the targeting does remain that final mode.
Could be.
Yeah.
It could be. And that being said, I mean, I do think the algorithms are also trying to take away aspects of targeting. But it is still something you have some power over,
Hmm.
in addition to the messaging. The last thing I'll say is like if you're not pushing conversion data back into these platforms, you're really in trouble to get success.
Tell us more about that.
Well, all right. So if ultimately if all these ad platforms are basically saying, trust the algorithm, trust the algorithm, trust the algorithm. What is the algorithm going to optimize for? It's going to optimize for whatever signal you feed it, right? So it's going to say, all right, you want form submits. Great. I don't care how good those form submits are though, right? Because I'm just the algorithm. I want to serve your ads as much as possible. So you have to feed it basically CRM conversion data back into the ad platform in order to say, hey, no, you have to optimize for this thing that's actually valuable to me, not the junk. And the Andromeda algorithm is actually getting the meta ad algorithm is getting better and better and better at that at a crazy clip. For as much as Meta seems to be losing in some spaces, it's still really fucking good
Yeah.
at their and I think a lot of B2B marketers like dip their toe into Meta, test it, oh, doesn't work, then they come back. But like if you haven't tested it in a while, it's worth another try.
Yeah. And that's one thing I want to double down on because you mentioned earlier, it's really hard to get it right initially.
Mm-hmm.
It takes time.
Yeah.
So for companies, marketers, founders that are trying to scale to new channels, like what should they expect? What kind of like time horizon does it take to actually get that right and it to click? And how much money usually does it take
Oh
to scale?
man. I actually don't know if I have a great answer to that
Yeah.
question.
Totally fair. Can also be super variant.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It can
Yeah.
really, it can be really, kind of again, like target market dependent. I do think that there's, like probably a floor of investment that you have to make. And then probably more than anything, it's just coming in with good test design,
Mhm.
proper A/B tests, knowing what metric you're trying to optimize for, and then giving yourself, actually not you giving yourself, but you getting maybe enough rope to not hang yourself, to basically prove that you to run enough experiments.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Super helpful advice. What about, I have to ask you, be
Yeah.
remiss if I didn't.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about ads in LLMs.
Mm-hmm.
What is your
Yeah.
perspective on all this buzz?
TBD, right? I mean, Perplexity's had their kind of ad program in beta, obviously. OpenAI just launched theirs. It's, I don't know, from my perspective, I'm excited for it, but that's
Mhm.
because this is what I do.
Yeah.
I mean, and if you think about how much money Google has made off of this for so long, I mean, it's going to, it's going to be really interesting to watch it unfold. And like, I'm really interested uh, in how, like, actually what it's going to look like. I haven't had the opportunity to test it yet.
Yeah.
So,
When do you think ads will be live in ChatGPT? If you had to give a guess.
we should get Tommy Fink in here from OpenAI.
Shit. It's a call a friend question.
That's right. Text them right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would guess. I mean, so much over there seems up in the air at the moment, but in the next 6 months seems reasonable. Yeah.
That's very soon.
Yeah.
That's
Think
very
so.
soon.
they got to make some money if they want to IPO,
Yeah,
monetize those free
exactly.
users.
100%. And I mean, I said ChatGPT, but it goes for every LLM.
Yeah. That one platform I haven't mentioned is X, which is just, excuse my language, dog shit from an advertising kind of infrastructure standpoint.
We need that asterisk on there. Don't hate on X otherwise.
But ads and grok and all of that. I think that's a natural extension if they can figure that out. Yeah. I know they brought on a new CEO to help with the monetization, so we'll see.
Yeah. It will be very interesting to see. Well, we'll revisit that once we've got ads and LLMs and access potentially running more paid opportunities.
Definitely.
Well, great. We've talked a lot about paid advertising itself, but what we haven't yet covered is yourself as a founder. Love to hear, now you're over 6 years into building and you've got incredible operating experience also. If you look back in time, what have been some of, the biggest lessons that you wish somebody had told you earlier in your founder journey that you would then pass along to someone else?
I think everybody did tell me. That's the problem. I just didn't listen. No, I mean, I joke that this is the most expensive MBA anybody's ever paid for.
Yeah.
Thank you to my investors, the GTM fund.
Our pleasure.
Yeah. I mean, it's been, there's so many, statements about being a founder. One of the ones I love a lot is, failure is a symptom of iteration, right? We have failed so many times. We launched a product, got great traction, pivoted it, got great, went down to nothing to like make it a subscription product, got it back up, went down to nothing, and then went into the dark for 9 months and rebuilt and pivoted again. And that many times at bat, it takes that, that grit that people talk about, that belief, that like irrational belief that this thing needs to exist, which, paid advertising, not everybody would argue needs to exist, but
I mean, it kind of does.
It kind of does.
It's kind of one of the few things that actually has to exist. Because if you have these platforms that have advertising potential, like you need to be winning on them. You need to.
Yes. I know. I meant more like existentially, but
100%.
But so it's like a weird thing to feel so deeply passionate about. Like this is something I geek out about. But I don't know. It's just everybody talks about the roller coaster. All those things, all the cliches are absolutely true, but you don't really realize they are until you go through it.
Yeah. I guess told yourself at like that hardest 9-month period.
Not to take it out on my partner.
Yeah.
That was really important. It took me a long time to realize that I was the one responsible for my own happiness. I couldn't seek affirmation or sort of like, sympathy from somebody where it was just unfair to ask it from them, right? Like I should be able to give that to myself. Was kind of like, that was a big unlock that helped me outside of work, have a healthier relationship with my work. That was big. It's okay to have panic attacks. It's normal. Get help, like talk to people, get help. That's really important.
That's very important.
I think, and that's one of the things that's changed a lot in Silicon Valley in the last, 5 to 10 years, is like the embrace of mental health for founders. I think that's really cool. And then, just recognize those moments where, it can be just like a simple fork in the road. You could say, all right, I'm done. What does that mean for me? Or I want to keep going. What does that mean for me? And just, kind of analyze those two options and pick the one that's right. I decided to keep going, and for better or for worse, seemingly for better. But there's costs to keeping going too, that you just have to pay in terms of your relationships, the opportunity cost potentially to your career. If it does, because there is still no guarantee that even if you do decide to keep going, that it's going to work out. Right.
So, a lot of things to weigh, but you're absolutely right. It's a very kind of beautiful time to see people being so much more open about their mental health for founders and just for overall humanity. It's a cool evolution that we're seeing and we're continuing to see.
Amen.
And as you've kind of gone along the founder journey, have there been any particular books or things that you've read that have really helped you in whatever
Yeah.
capacity you found?
Um, you know, the books that have helped me the most, if I'm being totally honest,
Yeah, 100%.
uh, it's kind of like escapism. Like
Yeah.
for me, at the end of the day, it's funny. I know I should do more business reading,
Yeah.
but but I just like at some point I just need to unplug and fall into a different world. So I'm like a big sci-fi fantasy nerd.
Oh, I love it.
That's one thing, but that's kind of a BS answer.
No, it's not a BS answer at all. Actually, I read fairly recently something that was talking about the cost of actually not reading fiction anymore, just as
Mm,
people are consuming more short form videos and
yeah,
reading just pure business books is the imagination and what
yeah.
that does for your actual creativity, for marketing, for the ad creative, for actually thinking through these campaigns because suddenly you're served the experience visually instead of reading the words and actually envisioning what that sci-fi world looks like to yourself. So could actually have
Wow.
downstream effects.
You're making me feel good about, yeah,
Yeah,
my
no,
choices now. Thank you.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. There's
love that.
there's downfalls to all these or little trade-offs to all
Yeah,
the evolutions and things that we are doing right
totally.
now.
Um, I will say though, on more of the coming back to the mental health side, I think Untethered Soul was really a
Such a good
amazing unlock for me,
read.
to kind of, let go. Yeah. Anyway, mindful on the mindfulness journey, I'm still very much on, but
Yeah.
that has helped enormously. Um, I mean, I could rattle off business books, but I actually think that those, if I'm being like really genuine, those are my two answers.
That's
Yeah.
the only answer we take is the
Yeah.
genuine one. So those are fantastic
Yeah.
answers. I love it. And AI.
Okay.
Yeah, more of the personal AI side.
Yeah.
But of course, as you're building, you've implemented some really innovative AI solutions and you're personally using it and your team is using it. I'm curious if there's been any specific use cases that you use other than your product, and of course, on the paid media side, but for yourself, company building that, are less obvious but have been really helpful in your journey.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sort of waiting for someone to create. I really want a dev tool that's, basically built on an agentic platform to make producing integrations way faster.
Hmm.
Something that could, for example, look at your, kind of like a, a version of Claude Code or Cursor that is more specific. It looks at your code base, understands, how your frameworks for producing integrations, goes off, looks at API documentation, and churns out like a V1 of an integration, and then helps you with the infrastructure support around that too. I think that would be fucking awesome because integrations
Mm.
are such a bottleneck for so many companies, and you don't want to wait. They're somewhat commoditized, but they take effort to build.
Yeah, 100%.
Um, that's
They're
one.
also expected. If you don't have an
Exactly.
integration, it's
Yeah.
actually a huge, huge kind of red flag in the deal process.
Totally,
So,
totally. And it's like 10 years ago, you could get people to pay for them, right?
mhm.
Like kind of a premium for them. Now it's like, no way. Like I'm
Yeah.
just going to go to your competitor that has them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's a non-negotiable.
Yeah. It's like what's the expression? The Big Mac, the French fries on the apple pie.
Yeah.
Like you don't pay for, like nobody's buying a Happy Meal for the apple pie, right? Like, yeah.
No, no, certainly not.
Yeah. And then maybe more on the personal front, and it's just because I'm dealing with this all the time. It would actually be a terrible business because they would have no recurring revenue.
Yeah.
But like, I would love it. I'm going through a home remodel, and I would just love if there was some like AI platform to help with all of that because the project management is like I feel like I've got a whole nother full-time job on the
You
side.
probably do.
Yeah.
That sounds like a real task.
Yeah, it just sucks because like I would happily pay for it, but as soon as
Yeah.
the project's over, I churn out. So
Yeah.
terrible business, but would be real cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Keith, this has been amazing. If you had to leave listeners with one piece of advice, you've shared a ton of really valuable advice,
Sure.
but overall advice or some kind of quote or life motto that you kind of live by through years of experience.
Ooh, another deep question. I don't know. I think what I said before, failure is a side effect of iteration. I think that's an Elon Musk quote. That is something that it's kind of like it reassures me about the choices I make. It's like, you don't you don't kind of get to that best outcome unless you fail, unless you try. So that's something that kind of makes me feel okay when I make the dumb move that I do from time to time, as we all do.
Because they're not dumb.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, when I always think of it, it's the same thing, just in different wording, but failure is a data point. So it's like if you don't have data, you're actually in the worst possible position that you
Right.
could be, and you'll have data on kind of the success front and the failure front. But
Totally.
if it's not statistically significant, how do you iterate?
Yeah.
Just like the paid side, truly.
Well, and it's a weird sort of motto to take into parenting, kind of.
Yeah.
It's a weird way to phrase it in parenting, but I do think about that a lot with my kids. It's like you gotta let them fail. Yeah, you gotta let them try something and have it not work out. Yeah, that's my, I guess, nugget of wisdom. Yeah.
Very, very helpful. Keith, this has been wonderful. Thank you. Really appreciate the conversation and time.
Thanks, Sophie.